Copper Age comics are incredibly hot right now, and I cannot figure out why. What is shaking, YouTube? I am your host, Lawrence, over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and like always, welcome back to the show. Today is everybody's favorite video, the Hot 10 Comics of the Week Breakdown, where I take the 10 hottest comics according to the Key Collector app, and I break them down for you guys, letting you know which books I'm buying at which prices, and which I'm staying away from. But before we get started in the video, I want to remind you guys, if you're not a current sub of the channel, you guys are definitely missing out. Hit that sub button, smash the like button for me, and like always, let's get into this week's breakdown. Starting off the list at number 10 is a brand new book to this list. It is a copy of Vengeance of Bane #1 and the first appearance and origin of Bane. And last week we had a CGC 9.8 selling for $335, up 14% over the average. Now, I've checked everywhere and I cannot find out why this book all of a sudden is on this list. It has become super hot. Is it because James Gunn is rebooting the Batman series as we know it? Is he going to appear in the Matt Reeves film? I do not know. Regardless, I don't want to spend over $300 on a 9.8. You can go ahead and find this book most of the time for around $20 raw, so I can't see spending $300 and change on a 9.8. Dropping all the way from the top spot down to number 9 this week is a copy of Marvel Superhero Secret Wars #8 and the origin of the Black Symbiote costume. And last week we had a CGC 9.8 selling for $608 and up 22% over the average. This book has been all over the place at a 9.8, 550, 600, 650, now down to 608. I've been saying this for a while. In a 9.8, I'm willing to spend a max of $500 to own this book. Other than that, you can still find plenty of raws out there for $100 to $150. That's where I've been putting my money. Back on the list at number 8 this week is a copy of Silver Surfer #1 and the first solo titled Silver Surfer series and the origin of the Silver Surfer. And last week we had a super high grade copy of this one, a CGC 8.5, selling for $2,850, but up 24% over the average. Then we had a CGC 5.5 sale for only $550, only up 1% over the average. You guys know I'd love to own this book in high grade, hell, even mid grade, and I think that's where the sweet spot is. I know a lot of people say, oh, why are you buying a book only up 1%? Is because you still can get a great deal on this book around that grade, especially raw, for that dollar amount. Yes, I'm a buyer of this book, but I'm only buying it when I can get a deal. Coming in at the 7th spot, another book that will not get off this list. It is a copy of Incredible Hulk #340 in this iconic cover by Todd McFarlane. And last week we had a CGC 9.6 selling for $475, up an insane 35% over the average. Then we had a CGC 9.2 sale for $255, up 22% over the average. Not too long ago, I picked up a 9.2, 9.4 raw copy newsstand for literally $150. So buy this book raw if you want to own it, because if you're going to buy it graded, it's just way too much money to spend for a book that has a ton of copies out there. We're heading back to the 1980s at number 6. It is a copy of Transformers #1 and the first appearance of the Autobots and the Decepticons. And last week we had a CGC 9.6 selling for $375, up 15% over the average. Then we had a CGC 9.0 sale for $150, up 5% over the average. Now that 9.0 sale for $150 is not too bad in my opinion, but I always see this book raw probably in the same grade, 9.0, 9.2, 9.4 possibly, for around the same price. So to me, if you could buy a raw copy and get it for cheaper, I'm okay with that. If you want to buy a graded copy, I'm saying 9.0, 9.2 max, but I don't want to spend more than $150, and I think a 9.6 and a 9.8 is just way too much money to spend. Back on the list again at number 5 this week is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man #129 and the first appearance of Frank Castle and the Punisher. And last week we had a super high grade copy, a CGC 9.6, selling for a whopping $8,300 and up a crazy 21% over the average. Then we had a CGC 5.0 sale, a mid-grade copy of this book, selling for a cool $1,080, up 14% over the average. I'm liking to see this book go up in price. Don't get me wrong, if you own this book already, which a lot of people do, I want to see it go up in value a little bit more. With that said, if you do not own a copy of this book, is now the time to buy it. I love it. You guys know I want to own this book, but it's up to you to determine what copy and what grade you want to buy for your personal collection. To me, it's a must own. To you, you really have to think on this one. Holy smokes, at the 4th spot this week is a copy of Voltron #1, The Defenders of the Universe, the 5 lions that come together to form Voltron. Of course, this is the first appearance of Voltron in US Comics, and last week we had a CGC 9.8 selling for a whopping $625, up a crazy 157% over the average. That to me is nuts. It is because there's a rumor out there right now that is saying Henry Cavill is set to star in a new Voltron movie. I have no idea if that's correct or not. Regardless, I'm not spending this kind of money on this book. You want to spend around $100 for a really nice copy, a raw copy, I'd be all for it. Other than that, this is way too much money to spend on this book. I'd rather own the original toys from the early 1980s if you want to buy something Voltron, not the comic, but that's just me. Dropping down a few spots to number 3 this week is a copy of Venom #3 and the first appearance of Null, the creator of the alien symbiote race. And last week we had a CGC 9.8 selling for $321, but up 50% over the average. Let me tell you something. Elite Comics 11 during their AtCon live sale had a copy in a 9.8 for only $200. I would have jumped at that book if I saw it. Other than that, that's really what I want to spend to own this book in a 9.8. But let me tell you something else. I just heard a little rumor that really Null is not really involved in Venom 3, the movie, so that's why this book is hot. Be very careful buying this book. I think a lot of rumors out there are speculating that he's going to jump over to the MCU. I'm not too sure that's accurate. We're going to find out with Venom hitting theaters this Friday. Wow, at the 2 spot is one of my favorite books of all time. It is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man #50, the trifecta, the first appearance of the Kingpin, classic John Romita cover, and the iconic storyline Spider-Man No More. And last week we had a CGC 8.5 selling for $3,500, up 7% over the average. Then we had a CGC 5.0 sale, a mid-grade copy of this book, selling for only $800, up 10% over the average. You guys know I absolutely love this book. I have my personal copy right here, ASM 50 signed by Stan Lee and John Romita Sr. If you don't own this book, I suggest getting it if you're a big Spider-Man fan. If not, I gotta ask you, why are you buying it? For the cover, for the story, because it's a classic key. Either way, you know I'm 100% a buyer of this book. I absolutely love it. Finally, at the top spot this week, a new book to this list. It is a copy of Green Lantern #87 and the first appearance and origin of the new Green Lantern, John Stewart. And last week, we had a CGC 9.2 selling for a whopping $1,200, up 18% over the average. Then we had a CGC 7.0 sale for $460, up 17% over the average. You guys know I love this book. One of the few bronze/copper books that I want to own in my collection from the DC side. With that said, I'm not spending $1,200 on a copy of this book. Decent amount of copies out there, but a 7.0 for around $460. I think you probably get a little bit better deal than that. I'd be all over that book, considering John Stewart is going to show up in the new DCU. It's already been confirmed. They've cast the actor. But I'll also say is now the right time to be buying this book with the news that we just got. I don't know. Either way, I don't think the hype train is really left with this one. So if you want to own the book, I'm all for it. That's it for the list this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, a lot of great books are out there, especially on this list. But some of them, like these 80s books, I don't want to spend crazy amounts of money to own them. With that said, it is now time for my best buy of the week, and to me this was an easy one. It is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man #50 and that classic cover, the great storyline, and of course the first appearance of the Kingpin. I'm a Spidey guy. If you are not a Spidey guy, I'd probably go with Silver Surfer 1, but other than that, I think you can't go wrong with either of those books. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.